In the opening scene, we meet a man named Armin who is having meetings with high-ranking officials. Armin has a hard time comprehending the camera and focusing correctly. It is obvious that he is inexperienced. After finishing his work, Armin reports his work to his superior, but he realizes that the camera was not in the mode he lost the whole time. Thereupon, his boss gets angry and he storms out of his room. Following this, we get to know our hero more closely. Armin is an aimless bachelor who lives alone in a small apartment and has financial means. Among those invited to his house is a girl named Rosa. He is not good with women. He plays music in an attempt to create a romantic atmosphere, but Rosa plays music in his teeth. When you want to use his brush, Armin refuses and offers to buy him a new one. Rosa blushes and leaves without saying anything. In the next scene, Armin visits his parents' house to see his bedridden grandmother. Family life in the army is bad. His father left his mother and now he is a young man named Ilo. The lovers are together. That night, Armin stays with his grandmother. She leans her head on his shoulder and reassures him that everything will be okay. The next day, in the evening, Armin decides to visit his biological mother, even though his father does not want it. He believes that his mother is waiting for him. After a long journey, his mother is not there. As a result, he gets what he wants. And he tries to communicate with his father, but after a while he sees better than a few scooters. Armin starts to produce anxiety. Abandoned in the middle of the road a short distance, the roads are completely empty. Armin does not slow down and gets in the car and drives away, and he notices the car, pays a lot of attention to it. Engines are still running while leaving the store. Several motorcycles leave money on the cashier's table at the gas station. He looks at it and calls out to the cashier, but no one notices whether it is abandoned. The decision is to prevent the storage inside. He usually starts to go to the store to buy it. Armin wakes up in his car and gets some food. After a ship, he is separated from categories with tears on a river bank in his car. This sight makes him feel more rejected and sees the time spent in your eyes. This sight is good with them. When he reaches his house, he cannot reach him. He panics and hurries back to his father's house. The door of the room is locked. He knocks on the door. But when there is no answer, his anxiety increases and he has to break it. Inside, he finds his grandmother's lifeless body lying on her bed. He gets very scared and starts screaming. However, no one responds. After further investigation, he enters the house of a neighbor named Luder, but only his dog Cosmo is at home. Unable to understand what is going on, Armin returns home and starts to look after himself. His surprise increases when he realizes that his phone has no reception and the water has been cut off. After a while, he hears a voice from the entrance door. Armin, who thinks that someone is responsible for all this, takes a rifle and goes to Luder's house to confront the intruder, but when he finds no one there, he realizes that his assumption is wrong. The next morning, he takes a shower with his bottle and decides to send his grandmother off to the afterlife. He collects all the books and papers and places them on his grandmother's bed. He pours gasoline on them and sets them on fire. Afterwards, he goes for a drive on an empty road and encounters many abandoned vehicles along the way, and soon a luxury police car. Armin, who has never been in a luxury car in his life, immediately gets in the car, and from the exit of the journey, he enters a tunnel and sees an overturned truck with horses stuck inside. He feels sorry for them and immediately rescues the animals. A few years pass and we see the army living their lives like farmers. He built a wooden house somewhere in the forests of the deserted world. He raised chickens, various animals such as ducks, horses and goats. Armin goes after the jackal with his gun, but is caught by the baby goat, who feels sorry for the mother goat. The next morning, a jackal and a deep feeling of joy. What does Yasar do? Armin witnesses all his birthdays. He realizes that the goat is about to give birth. While he was sleeping one night, he was working on the invention of a grumpy goat that would produce electricity. It is understood that there is electricity with the help of water coming from the river. His efforts to adapt to live alone, to adapt to live alone, to sew clothes for his animals and his head, to eat food are inconclusive. Armin, who is discouraged, returns empty-handed and shares his pain by playing with the mother goat for a while. One day, Armin shares his pain. He jumps on his horse and goes to the forest to collect the things he needs. He goes deep into the forest with his horse. When Armin comes to his senses, he suspects that it may be a threat. He is stranded in the countryside for 3 days without drinking a drop of water. And it tells about the vast sad experience of Syria when it is only broken, while they are working, it is dirty. I live in Syria, we see them on the stage, engrossed in their work, Kirsi and Armini in the field, they build a life together, the next Kiris with the name of a woman with a shotgun in her hand. That day, they part passionately with the happiness of being built by the army. After the break, when you get the compensation, you can come into contact with a person, he reaches out, touches his hand, and says a long word. While their conversation continues, Armin asks if he has met him. He asks if he has met other people. Armin asks if he belongs here. Instead of an urban area, Armin asks if he belongs here. When they sit in a place, why does Kirsi army? Then he takes it to drink coffee and treats the army's wound, he gets first aid supplies from his vehicle. He goes in and the wound on his fold was formed after a few minutes, something like this lasted for a very long time, he realizes that it is quite delicious, he waits for breakfast, when he examines it in the morning, Armin he wakes up and puts a gun ready next to him and walks towards his vehicle. The next he throws it aside in the dirt. He is scared. So he submits and asks him to drop the stick. Rather than attacking, Armin approaches him with a rifle and hides his gun behind him. After a short while, he picks up a stick and realizes that a bush is approaching his house. In the hours before he realizes, Armin returns to his house in a station wagon. As the night progresses, he has no idea. He thinks for a while and then he finds himself wrapped in aluminum foil. We see someone observing Armin in the morning. He comes to the scene with a flashlight and takes the injured consciousness. After a while, he falls off his horse in his hand and burns. And Armin shoots the dog, but is attacked in the process. The one who reacts immediately tells. He also wants to visit Berlin, but Armin rejects the city as he does not find it attractive. Armin devotes the time and energy of his daily activities to his latest invention. Harnessing the power of river water to produce electricity. Many mishaps make him angry. And when he continues to insist that he leaves the house, the woman opposes him with her strength, saying that Armin does not want to have a child in the apocalypse, their lives begin to be damaged, the rest expresses his desire to be this, they swim happily, let's come to Armin, he has children, in his spare time, he usually shares a lot of food in the fields in the river and we see that they live a happy life. As the days go by, the different couple patiently acquires a sufficient power supply for their home. And finally, they achieve success, and despite facing failure, when they sit down at the table, they see a caravan approaching, they go out with curiosity and see Kirsi with a dog in the vehicle. While the two are chatting, Kirsi tells about interruptions from her past life. She had a deep love for a man for 7 years and she couldn't be with a man she didn't know and when she crashed she fell behind but Armin some of them didn't wait for me there at night he asks her if he won't come back she asks him if he won't come back to her plan to leave explains this situation to Armin supporting the repair of tires the next morning, the hedgehog asks Armin, there is a tire of their caravan on the road. It is obvious that something is bothering him. If the cheerful hedgehog appears, the two return home together. Armin enjoys this moment for a while. After enjoying this moment, the music soldier starts dancing with him. He refuses to go to the market regularly to buy a liquid. The duo later expresses his desire to leave his beloved animals behind. He politely expresses his desire to leave his beloved animals behind. Armin also has a detailed heart until he tells him that he has a resilient and independent life. Practices as a result of this the end of the point of view 7 years of life literally day man's son came some left in uncertainty then as one explains him to wait however the man tells him that he is constantly looking forward to the family distribution he is restless he stands next to the church and watches the beautiful views in the morning the rest wakes up and tells him he prepares a cup of coffee, then he finds the army's recipe book. While flipping through the pages, he comes across a photo of the army with his grandmother and becomes pessimistic. After the tire problem is successfully solved, Armin returns his caravan, gives him the keys, warns him not to go too fast in order to cause an imbalance in the tires, and gives him one last dirt-free shot. While he is getting ready, Armin stops him. Not wanting to be alone again, he makes a rash decision and goes with him. He asks him to just wait a minute to release all his animals. He releases all the cages and plants. However, as he does this, Kersey suddenly walks away, leaving him behind. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.